Hello and welcome to January 2025's Pop In and Learn. Today's topic, we're going to talk about just some ideas and how I completed this page. In this layout, when I was done with it, I kind of thought, there's quite a bit here that I thought might benefit you from knowing how I did it. So this is the template that I started with. So the first thing that I wanted to remind you is we have something now called enhanced digital art. So you go out to your embellishments. So one example that comes from Pixels to Pages, Magic Grid Photo Arrangements. That's my favorite. It has a ton of layouts and they come in grouped with these different combinations of photos. So this is the original layout that I created with one big center photo. But maybe the page that you're working on, you have a ton of pictures and you really wanted like a collage in the middle. So you can grab one of these, add to the page, and then you can resize it to fill the space that original one picture took up. So that one picture is right here. I can hide it and I can take this group and drag it below. And now I have a collage of photos. And if I wanted to, I can add a stroke to all of them. Let's go ahead and I'm going to grab this picture and you can go Format, Sample Stroke, and Sample Shadow. Now I'm going to grab this collage. I'm going to go Ungroup, Format, Apply Stroke, and Apply Shadow. So now I have a whole bunch of pictures at once on the page, and I didn't have to create the layout. This kit did it for me. So that's just one thing that I wanted to show you. Makes it quick and easy to add that to a page. You can start on a blank page and add those, or adjust a template that you already have to add more pictures. Okay, so working with aspect ratio. You can see that I had to do some adjusting to get my pictures to work. So I resized this picture to kind of fill that corner, and I resized this picture. So when you're resizing, if the template has the aspect ratio locked, then when you resize, it'll keep, so that's a square, its aspect ratio is locked. If it's not locked and you resize, it's all loosey-goosey. So kind of understanding how that works. How do you know if it's locked or not locked? Well, you can try to move it and that will show you, or you can check, right-click, aspect ratio, lock. So that means right here, if I have the option to unlock it, that means it's locked. And if you have the option to lock it, then it means it's already unlocked. You can you can switch back and forth by using that right-click menu, or you can hold down Shift, and Shift will toggle it to the other option. So right now this is locked because I'm holding down Shift. So that's one way to understand how you can work with aspect ratio to kind of resize. Let's say I know I want this frame to be tall instead of a square. I could right-click, unlock, and then I can just drag this down. And using those alignment guides, you can see how they're turning green when it gets to the bottom. And then I can get rid of that other picture. So you can kind of take a template that is created and resize. And then that way, aspect ratio, unlock, resize. And so you can make it work for your pictures. So I just wanted to make sure you understood how to lock and unlock your aspect ratio to make it work for you. Next, filling in groups. So this element right here, you can see it's a group of 3 items. So if I go up here to content papers, let me go out to the kit I was using on this page. It is called City Break. And they have a lot of different city breaks. This one's particular is related to Washington, D.C. So I use it on a lot of my DC pages. And you can right-click and actually fill the whole group at once. If you select multiple items on a page, you can fill all of them at a time. So that does save you time as well. So like if I wanted to fill all of these masks, I can do those all at a time. If you fill one at a time, the software is going to ask you, oh, what part of this paper would you like it to fill? And then you can pick. If you do a really small portion, it's going to make whatever pattern on there be really big. So let's do one that's a little more patterned so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, let's minimize. So it's going to make that really big. Or if I say fill selected shape and I spread it out, it's going to make those much smaller and fill them in. It gives you the ability to do that. If I were to pick all of these things on here, it's going to just give you one portion of that paper and fill all of them with it. And it's going to be the same portion. So sometimes one works better than the other. So you're going to have to kind of for me, I was happy with these solids, like how it looked. You can't really tell that, it's filling that same portion. It's a quicker way to get a bunch done on a page at a time. Next thing is glowing text to make it more readable. I added this as a background. So we're going to go to Arrange, move to Back. Oftentimes I can just add a shadow when I'm journaling and that would help. Sometimes that makes it a little too chunky and it makes it like more unreadable. And so a glow, let's go ahead and zoom in to 100% so you can kind of see better. A glow will give you a better readability. So we'll go up here. So it'll see recent glows. Sometimes I might just grab a glow and change the color. I will sample a color from the paper. Right here, it says colors on this page. That's super easy. I don't have to sample. And then it just kind of blurs out right behind that. So this is pretty simple, but let's grab one that's a little more busy. Okay, so now we'll grab our text, go to glow. And yeah, I kind of like how that is, but I want to change the color. And again, a color on this page. That's a little dark. Let's go a lighter one. And it just gives a little definition. So it's not detracting from the beauty of the paper, but it makes the text more distinct. Now, if I take that text and I remove the glow, you can see it's harder to read. So it does make a difference. Google resources for images. For this particular page, my daughter and I, we went to the Holocaust Museum, ended up having to cut our visit short. So I didn't get a lot of pictures. And so I wanted to make sure to honor the victims of the Holocaust. So I got some pictures off the internet and journaled about our story and Googled the importance. We did walk through this room, but I didn't get a good picture. So I found a picture online of that room. Didn't get a great picture of the front of it. So I got that picture. So it just helped me to tell the story of our visit. I ended up getting this picture of the quote, this picture of kind of like the satire art, this picture inside. But I wanted to be able to tell the story of our visit. And just because we had to leave early, I didn't want to miss out on. Also, because the postcards we got in the store talked about, what you do matters. Think about what you saw and not let it happen again. I wanted to make sure that I documented that story well. So there's going to be times where I kind of need to rely on Google to do that. And so just a tip to remember to that you can rely on that as a resource if you need to. Using the same image twice on a page. Why would you want to do that? Sometimes you need to. Particularly these two images is one of the Google images I got. Let's go to photos and not used. Hit preview. Ended up being, I don't know why this is how the photo came across, but it was like two separate images on one image. And I wanted to put one here and one here. And so I just duplicated the image. That way I would have an extra one available on my image list. And then I could drag, let's go on page 2, because that's where I put it in my project. And then zoom in. Actually, they were probably in a different order on my page, but you get the idea. It gives you the ability because if you filter your photos to show, photos not used, then that photo would drop off the list. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget to use the other part of that photo. So you may not have been aware that that was an option. So duplicate this photo as an option. Next is grabbing text art from images. A couple of ways to do that. And why would you want to do that? So sometimes, there's cute art in the store that you can use to put a title on your page, or you can type your own title up. But I had this postcard and I liked how they had created this word art. And so I wanted to use that as the title for this page. And so, ways that you can do that. So I'm going to grab that photo. And we'll have to say, sometimes you just have to play around with it. The first time you try it, it's not going to work. And you have to try a couple different tricks. It's not showing up. So we will just pretend we want to do this title. So we will add this to the page. A couple of ways that you can do it. And I rubber stamp from this image. If I wanted to get this title off of here, I could try rubber stamp and see if I can grab that off. So insert stamp. You can see I can we'll do black and create. If I hide the photo, you can kind of see how that looks. That's not bad. That's a usable title. Another option is the wand tool. So under the cut ribbon, so this would be cutting away part of this image. So go cut, selection section, wand. And it says it's going to flatten it, and that's okay. And we're going to say all, and I'm going to select the white. So it's going to be inside. I'm doing all because I want inside all those bits of the letters. And then down here at the bottom right, select, cut copy. And I'm going to say keep both areas so I don't have to figure out which one's right. And cut. And then we're going to click away. You can see up here in my elements panel, the white is what we want to get rid of. So I'm going to hide it. And that's pretty good. I like that. So we can keep that as is, or, you can fill that with a solid color. And actually, I think what I did is I went up to content. We'll go back to that city break kit. And then from there, I put it on the page. So I'll show you one other way that would work, that sometimes if those two things don't work. So we're going to set this aside because that worked really great. We'll go to photos. We'll add that on. I'll show you a third one that might work better. If for some reason you can't get the stamp to work, sometimes what I do is I go up to filter, stylize, threshold, and I change it to 2 colors. Then I can play around with it and make it an easier way to grab the text that's in there. So now I can say, save to that, and then I'll go into my insert ribbon and I can rubber stamp, and then it's only going to grab that black. So those are a couple of ways, like if you wanted to grab, if you like the text work on like a sign on a wall or a postcard or something, that's kind of 3 ways to get that out of there. When I did the title, I was having a hard time with the paper and this mask reading their United States Holocaust Memorial Museum on the page. Like I was having a hard time with that. So one other tip I wanted to show you was doing a layered title. So we'll get rid of this title and we will make sure this is not. Let's lock it, and I'm going to resize it. Oops. Right now it's super easy to read because there's no paper behind it, but let's pretend it's not easy to read. We want to add layers to it. So copy and paste. And then you can go to your content, paper, and let's fill it with blue. And the other blue. So I just copied and pasted. So Control C, Control V. And then you want to make sure you have them in the order that you want. So I'm going to put red on top, and then the dark blue, and then the light blue. I'm going to grab the light blue. I'm in the Elements panel, and then Shift. I'm going to grab the dark blue, and then the red. And in the Quick Access toolbar, I'm going to center them on each other, grabbing the 2nd and 5th buttons. The layering part that you would do, once you have it centered, then you're going to take the layers below it and one of them I went down. So like, let's go down 3 and over 3. And the next one go up 3 and over 3. And what you can do, like the up one, I did a custom shadow that I went up with. And the bottom one, I did a custom shadow that I did down with. And then the center one, I did a 3D edge to make it pop. You stagger it so that it helps break up the background and makes it stand out more. And it's the same phrase. If that is too much, sometimes, if you do less, it just gives a little bit of interest on the page. Editing photo shapes to tuck other elements in a dead space. So let me show you the example of that. When I was working on this, I'll zoom in a little. I needed to create space so that I could fit more journaling in, and I didn't want to put it on top. I wanted to make room. So let's put a photo that has an empty space in it. Okay, so let's say I want to create room here to tuck a photo. And I'm going to zoom in so it's easier to see over Zoom. This would be shape editing. Right-click, shape, edit shape. And for me, it's a lot easier to see what I'm doing if I use ruler tabs. So a lot of times I will put a ruler tab in to kind of get an idea what I'm doing. And then I will put my point on that tab. And I end up having much straighter lines than if I just willy-nilly put a point out there. And then I'm bringing that corner point into where they intersect. Then that's a lot straighter than if I were to try to eyeball that, for me personally. And then I say, okay. Then I can take a photo, copy and paste, and then I can tuck it into that space there. And you can see I still need to work on my straight lines. So shape, edit shape. So here, I would need to come down just a little bit. If I put another picture in there, or if I wanted to put, like sometimes what I'll do is I'll put, like I did on this sample page, I put paper in there and journaling, but it gives you the freedom to do that and not take away from the picture, not be on top of it. It depends on your design and what you want to do. What I had done on my page is I also edited another picture and kind of created, that same opening over here. Or you could, make this one even with the top of that one. So it's up to you how you do that, but that is editing a shape rather than, layering. So one thing back in October, I think 2020, when Kim Menino came for our P2P Live, I learned this and I've been doing it ever since. So when you have a template, so let's go into this page here, and you see there's a background. Before she came, if I wanted a background to be this paper, I would make background. That's what I would do. But she said what she does is she adds this as a paper and then she moves it down. So move to back. And then that way down the road, so let's say we'll make this blue. We'll make that the background. And then she can take this creamy paper and you can lower the opacity and kind of get that to bleed through. Or if you had a really patterned paper, so let's grab something a little more patterned. Let's do that one. Then you're able to take the layer above it and kind of mute it. If you were to, let me hide this layer. If I were wanting to mute that layer and lower the opacity, you're going to get this checkerboard look, which is not how it's going to print, but it is very distracting to look at. So that's why having your paper as a different layer is helpful. So let's go ahead and fill that background with a solid color. We'll just fill it with one of the colors of that paper. And then we'll add that paper as a layer and we'll drag it below. So move to back. Now, if I say, okay, I like it, but it's a little strong, I can lower the opacity of it. And you can see I don't get that checkerboard. I still have some pattern and that blue shows through. So that's kind of, ever since she taught us about that, that's kind of why I add paper instead of making it the background. When I'm working on a 2-page spread, if I have the same paper on both pages, which I normally do, I will flip page 2 just to make sure it's, for me, pleasing to the eye, that it's mirroring or balanced out. And so I do that up here in the arrange ribbon and rotate section, the second row, second one. And sometimes not as obvious, but let's go ahead and add this paper to the page and we'll move to the back, slide it up, and we will. So you can see some of these patterns are a little more obvious. And you can see, if I go back over here. So sometimes it's more obvious when, to me, it's more pleasing to have your paper do that rather than have what I call like the choo-choo train effect where they're like running in a row. So that's just my last tip on that layout. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.